Well, here we are, sort of. Um, Welcome, you guys. It's good to see you all. This is not much like other San Diego conventions that I've been to, but it is good to see everybody. And welcome to everyone streaming this. I hope you're comfortable, safe, and healthy at home. My name is Stuart Moore. I write Captain Ginger and Bronze Age Boogie for Ahoy Comics, and I also handle publishing operations. I want to play this panel fairly loose. I'll do a little introduction to Ahoy for newcomers, but first, why don't we have the panelists all introduce yourselves? Who wants to start? Tom, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm Tom Peyer, editor-in-chief of Ahoy Comics. You have to call me. And I also write a few of them. There's one that just came out as a collected edition called Dragonfly and Dragonfly Man, and one coming up called Penultiman in the fall. And that's me.
Okay. Who's next? Mariah, you were popping up there. You want to go next?
Oh, sure. Mariah McCourt. I write Ash Thorn for Ahoy, and it's my little old ladies dealing with the apocalypse story, which was not meant to be quite this timely.
Great. How about you, Steve?
Oh, hello. I'm Steve Pugh, artist on Billionaire Island. You know, I've just been hanging around drawing comics for years. I'm on Google.
Mark?
I Eisner nominated for thinking this year.
Yes, congratulations.
Congratulations. Well, too late to vote by now, but you know.
Sounds good. Mark, you want to say hi?
Yeah, hi, I'm Mark Russell, and I write Billionaire Island, and also writer on Second Coming.
Great. Okay, now, since we can't see the audience out there, I just want to do a very quick introduction for anybody watching who doesn't know what Ahoy Comics is. And maybe I can do this even with some graphics. Hold on a moment. The company was launched in fall 2018. And since then, we've built up a carefully curated line of comics. The basic criteria of all Ahoy Comics is that they must be funny. They must be works of some substance, and the humor in them can take a lot of different forms. I'm sure Tom will talk about that a little more as we go along. We call the single issues comic book magazines because they're filled with prose and illustrated stories in addition to the main stories, which has, in turn, vamp for time for just a second while I figure out what I'm doing. That has led to our slogan, which is expect more. First book in September 2018 was The Wrong Earth, which was created by Tom Peyer with art by the amazing Jamal Igle. Since then, we published the religious satires Second Coming and High Heaven, the superhero parody #Danger, my own sci-fi spoof Captain Ginger, the time travel stories Planet of the Nerds and Bronze Age Boogie, and the humor horror anthology series Edgar Allan Poe's Snifter of Terror. Our publishing plans got knocked off kilter recently for some reason. I can't quite remember why right now.
No idea.
But no reason. But we've continued producing the books. We never did pencils down. We had everyone working all along. And now we're releasing them on a slightly accelerated schedule in order to keep everything coming out on time for the trade paperback collections in the fall. We'll talk more about the individual books as we go. And with that, I want to turn to the various panelists. Let's start with Mark. You are here to talk about two different books, I guess, Billionaire Island and Second Coming. Why don't we start with Billionaire Island, which is coming out now and which reunites you with Steve. Issue 3 should be coming out right about the time people see this, I think. So anything you want to say about Billionaire Island in general?
Yeah, well, first, I'm thrilled with the ability to reunite with Steve and work on something. I think he's just a fantastic artist, and I really miss the way we used to work together on the Flintstones. So to be able to do this is amazing. But in a lot of ways, I feel like Billionaire Island is a story whose time has come. It's ironic that it's a story about sort of the end of the world as we know it, and it was sort of interrupted. Its publication was interrupted by the end of the world as we know it. But yeah, it's basically about a bunch of billionaires preparing for the end of the world, who by creating an artificial island in the Gulf of Mexico and moving there to ride out the death of the rest of us, basically.
Okay, and I've got, I think I've got a panel from it here I can show for a little bit. Just, that's the splash of issue 1, which I liked quite a bit.
And the guy on the left is like he's a vigilante, sort of like a Punisher-style anti-hero who, his family was killed by this corporation that is producing this sterility virus in their grain, and it causes really adverse reactions in certain people, and his family died from it. So now he's going after the billionaires he believes are responsible for the deaths of his family, which is leading him to Billionaire Island.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really good book. It's a really sharp satire, and it's great to see you guys reunited after your award-nominated work on the Flintstones at DC. And Steve, I was going to turn to you just briefly, and I have a note here saying to congratulate you on your Eisner nomination, but you managed to toot your own horn before I could get to it. So there you go. Do you want to say anything about the book, about what it's like working on it?
Yeah, I'd like to echo Mark's comments about working with him again. It was unexpected. I always hoped I would, but this came up, and I jumped at the chance. It's got a lot of the same beats and problems to solve as the Flintstones. There's a lot of tone changes. There's like full-on slapstick humor, and there's very dark moments, very noir moments. So I've had to I try and come up with a different style for each book I draw, which is making life difficult for myself. But I think it's important that you suit the script. So I've extended the range out. The book is as funny as the Flintstones, but it goes into much darker places at times. And I think it's important that the art follows that and supports the writing. You know, it's no use imposing yourself on the dialogue. You have to support it. You have to be under it rather than on top of it, if that makes sense. I haven't talked to anybody in months, so I'll
That's all of us. It's okay.
Yes, it's true. I've got
in a lot of ways, Billionaire Island sort of like bookends the Flintstones, to echo Steve's sentiment. Like, Flintstones tells about the beginning of human civilization, and Billionaire Island is sort of about the end of the natural result of human civilization, of the problems that were talked about in the Flintstones.
I hope that doesn't mean you're going to retire after this book is
I wish. Wish that were a possibility.
All right. Well, Mark, I was actually going to go back to you for a minute because Second Coming, which Ahoy recently published, was a book that kind of leveled up Ahoy's visibility a bit. And of course, we've talked at other times about the way it about the sort of process of publication, where it started at DC, and they and you guys parted ways, and we were fortunate to pick it up. We've got the second season scheduled to begin this fall, tentatively. Do you want to talk at all about what's planned for that?
Yeah, sure. So at the end of the first season, I won't talk about the end of the first season in case there are people out there who haven't read it. I don't want to spoil anything. But the second season is basically takes place back on Earth, and Christ is starting to get more followers for his church, Jesus Christ Latchkey Kid, and where he basically explains to people that they have to do for each other the things that they used to expect God to do for them, because God has basically abandoned the earth to its own devices, and he's left and he's not coming back. So we have to sort of be the supernatural support for each other that we used to think that God would provide. And that's his mission on earth, which runs him afoul of like mega churches and other sort of religious authorities that own like amusement parks and cable TV stations, who are trying to channel Christianity in a much more profitable direction than what he has in mind. And also it's about Sunstar trying to figure out the best use for his powers, especially knowing that his wife Sheila is pregnant and they're going to have a child soon. How he can get the world best up to speed for bringing a child into it.
Oh, very cool. Wow. Yeah, and we're hoping. I think we've got that tentatively scheduled for. I can't remember, November or December. It'll depend a little on the art.
Yeah, last I heard was December.
I think it's December. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Let me turn to Mariah for a second. And I'm going to put up a graphic for just a second because, oops, I've got too many windows open. But the, oops, okay, wait a second. What just happened? That's weird. Okay. There we go. I'm just going to share the this for a minute so so everyone can see. Ash and Thorn, the first issue of your book, which featured this cover, this is the trade paperback cover, it's the same illustration, was a bit of a particular frustration for all of us, I think, because issue 1 was stuck in the Diamond warehouse for almost 3 months. But but it has finally come out, and I think issue 3 should be coming out soon. What do you want to tell us about the book? What do you want to say about it?
Well, I'm very glad it's been able to come out. There's that. It kind of feels weird with everything that's going on, that you're like, I really hope people like this book about old ladies fighting monsters. But it's definitely meant to be a take on the Chosen One tropes, and specifically the things that I've always loved, which was sort of the Buffy last girl standing kind of things, but go in a very different direction and, you know, explore aging and usefulness and who solves problems and why they solve them, and the things that age can bring to that whole kind of concept that we usually sort of foist on teenagers as if they're the last hope. And I wanted to explore something with somebody who is 80 plus years old and not looking at life in that way anymore, and not prepared for that in the same way. And Lottie is our main character, and she's sort of channeling a whole lot of women that I grew up with who are very no nonsense and very creative at the same time. So she has to figure out ways to deal with suddenly having powers and responsibility that she didn't have before. But also like not really wanting to put up with the BS of the situation either, not just kind of going like, oh sure, fine, monsters, everything, it's great. She's more like, yeah, what is this and why is it going on? And she takes responsibility, but she's also trying to figure out where she fits into it and why things are the way they are. So yeah, there's a lot of that, and there's a lot of other little threads of things moving in and out. And my bad guy is a very straightforward baddie. He's like, he doesn't really have any nuance. He's really just a bad dude. And he's also a monster who eats worlds. So there's not really any redeeming qualities to him. And I had wanted to have a bad guy like that for a while, because while I really appreciate nuanced evil and things, I really wanted somebody who was just like bad and hopefully that people would recognize as bad and it wouldn't really be a debate point. So I think he's about as obvious as you could get, I hope. But the art by Sue Lee and Pippa Bowman doing colors is really great. And it moves between these different weird moods and stuff really, really well, especially like the cosmic horror with humor and a very cranky Faye character who I called Pickle because I have to have something ridiculously British sounding in anything I do, basically. A little shout out to my grandmothers. So yeah, that's really the book, but it's weird rereading it now because a lot of frustrations I wasn't quite aware that I had come out in the book, especially with the bad guy. So I'm just glad people are going to be able to read it. So yay. And we have recipes in the back.
That's right.
Wow.
I have never had in a comic book before. So that's
I don't think I've ever seen that in a comic book. That's great.
Yeah, it's really fun. And they're real recipes you can make. But they are also a little tongue-in-cheek with some magic stuff thrown in.
Cool.
Very cool. All right. And yeah, we have I think I flashed it up for a minute, but here's a little panel from the first issue that shows sort of the legacy of the champions that leads up to Lottie. I guess. Yeah. Oops. Okay. All right. I'm going to jump in at this point myself and tell you a little bit about my book, Captain Ginger. We're in the second season of this. It's about a starship crewed entirely by cats in a future where the human race has been wiped out. The first volume of Ginger got a nice reception last year. It is in print and available from all the usual book outlets, including Amazon and digitally from Comixology. The sequel takes the cats on a tragic and hopefully funny odyssey to their to a world inhabited by their cousins, the dogs, which that was a challenge for me because I don't know dogs as well as I know cats, and I actually leaned a lot for this on my my collaborator June Brigman, who is a well, she calls herself a crazy cat lady. She has, I think, 8 cats right now, but she also knows dogs, and she does professional illustrations of a lot of different animals for magazines. So she's got a lot of. She was a great help. She helped pick out the breeds, everything. Captain Ginger has resumed publication because of the long gap between issues 2 and 3. We made the somewhat difficult decision to release the rest of the run serialized in digital only. Issue 4 should be out about now, and I will warn the sensitive that it is the most tragic issue of the series. The entire run will be collected in trade paperback, on paper, printed with ink, everything, in late October in comic shops, and early November in bookstores. All the books we're discussing pretty much will be out around that time, like October, November in trade. So that's that. I think I had one. No, I don't. Never mind. All right. So we come to Tom Peyer, who is the heart and soul, the very core of the apple that is Ahoy Comics. Tom, you've got a few things to discuss. You mentioned the trade paperback of Dragonfly and Dragonfly Man, which is out now. You want to start with that? That was a really nice way for Ahoy to resume publication.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, Dragonfly and Dragonfly Man is, I'm gonna hold it up. It's, it stars our 2 title characters were created by Jamal Igle and I for the series The Wrong Earth, which I'll get into in a minute, or I'll get into it now. They are 2 versions of the same superhero who live on 2 different Earths. And one of them is like an old-fashioned superhero who lives under the comics code. You know, there can't be anything objectionable that the strictest parent wouldn't want their young child to see in his stories. He's a flag saluting, just upstanding guy. And his counterpart was created much later, like in the 80s, and he's an ultra-violent, half semi-fascist vigilante who fights against ridiculously brutal serial killers and corrupt authorities. And his world is a much, much darker place. And in The Wrong Earth, the 2 characters get trapped on each other's Earths. It's kind of a double Howard the Duck situation. And in Dragonfly and Dragonfly Man, we visit them before the switch happens, so we can see how they function on their own worlds with their own sidekicks and their own supporting casts. And this has covers by Jamal Igle, but it's drawn by Peter Krause, who did a great job. And it's Lady Dragonfly Man on the back. So there's that.
I've got. I think I've got a slide here of The Wrong Earth trade paperback, which is we're bringing back in the fall as well. I think volume 2.
I love that cover. It's so good. So yeah, Jamal Igle really was a full co-creator of this thing. I'd come up with this idea a few years ago about taking a campy and then a sort of more adult, serious version of a character and swapping their planets. But my version was worse. It was like a dog-based superhero. It was, which is okay to do, but it kind of distracted from the joke. But Jamal had just been to Japan. He learned all this lore about dragonflies, so he suggested dragonfly as the motif, and it worked really well. And he, in terms of like designing the worlds, like they're two different cars. You know, the dark guy would have he'd have like a super militarized tank, you know, and the Earth Alpha campy version would have just this sweet little sports car. And he put that much thought into everything. Just wonderful.
Good. Yeah, and Jamal is returning for season 2 in the fall.
That's right. He's working on it right now. The second volume of Romer.
And I believe we'll have we should have a full announcement about our fall wave of titles pretty soon. And you also have a new title to talk about, Penultiman, which we originally put on the spring schedule and then pulled because everything kind of went on pause. And we decided to relaunch it in October, when hopefully it'll get a little more attention. You want to give us a few words on that?
Yeah, Penultiman was born in the far, far future. He's the next to the last stage of human evolution. And unfortunately for him, he was born in a time when the last stage was there and running things, and he was like a throwback. So he is, to us, to like primitives like us, he is supremely powerful and charming and graceful and gifted. But to the ultimates, at the end of evolution, he just seemed like a pathetic throwback, like a very primitive. He was depressing to be around. So they exiled him to our time. And where he's like just a wonderful superhero who saves everybody and fights evil people, and everyone adores him. But deep down, he hates himself because he wasn't good enough to live in his own time. So he debuted in a comic we did called Steel Cage, and that story is up on Comixology as Penultiman #0, and you can get it for free. And it's the sort of prequel to the series that will be coming out, in which he gets a robot called Anti-Penultiman, who tries to straighten out his life. But we'll see if a robot can straighten out your life.
All right. Well, that's thanks everybody. Thanks for running all that down. This is a kind of an unusual panel because we cannot actually take questions from the audience at all.
They just shout stuff out randomly. That would be, close enough.
You want to? Please shout something out.
Uh-oh.
By the way, you can tell I've decided to play with virtual backgrounds, and I'm now living in Captain Ginger with the cats over on one side and the dogs over here. Just so you can see. But yeah, do you guys have anything else you want to talk about? Anything you want to ask each other? Anything you want to just say about the world in general? I have to admit I didn't program this panel too tightly, partly because I'm lazy and partly because you guys are it's always just good to talk to you guys and see what happens, see what comes up.
And you can be here because I couldn't get my audio working.
Well, you're on now.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry, did someone else say something too?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that one of the things I'm excited about for the second season of Second Coming is that there's going to be a backup feature called My Bad, which is written by a friend of mine, Bryce Ingman, and I think drawn by Peter Krause. And what I've seen from it so far looks great. So I'm real. Another reason to, I think, check out Second Coming is the backup feature, My Bad.
Yeah, Bryce is a real up-and-coming talent. He's written a lot of he's written several short pieces for Ahoy. I think he's really good.
Yeah. He's also co-writing the Killing Red Sonja series I'm doing for Dynamite as well. So, yeah, name to look for.
Killing Red Sonja.
Yeah, it's about this 12-year-old with like a vengeance sort of obsession with Red Sonja. And he makes some like Faustian bargains in order to get his revenge on Red Sonja.
That works.
Yeah.
That works. I'm trying to think of with Ash and Thorn. I'm just really glad that people are going to get to sort of check it out. I had like my group of ladies who were like, okay, so they're like little old ladies like the Golden Girls, monsters, baking, and I was like, yes. They went, did you make the comic for me specifically? Or I was like, well, no, it was just those are things that I think of. But I'm just sort of excited that it's a little unusual in the comics landscape, at least right now, in terms of what you see as protagonists and sort of the exploration of horror and stuff right now, I think. Because that's what I'm always interested in. And I, like, personally, one of the reasons why I like Rick with Ahoy so much is that you guys don't shy away from tropes, because a lot of other people are like, let's be subtle. And I'm like, can we not be subtle, like, at all about it? It would be kind of great to just be like, oh no, this is completely 100% obvious that this is what this is, which is something I like being able to do because it's fun. Like I enjoy subtle as well, but it's nice to be able to just kind of go like, no, I'm just completely 100% mucking around with these tropes and these characters, sort of iconic ideas of them, and then, you know, taking them apart piece by piece.
Well,
I'm looking forward to people seeing the third episode, like the third issue, I think, especially. Not that the story matters as it progresses, but the third one gets so weird in this dream space stuff. So I'm looking forward to how people view that one, because it gets very, very bizarre from a psychological standpoint. So thank you guys for going with me on this very strange story. I never thought anybody would want to publish this particular idea. I thought people would just be like, no, this is too niche or strange. So thank you.
Oh, it's great. I'm so glad to be publishing it. That's terrific.
Yeah, subtlety is really highly overrated, I find. Like, it's like, I think subtlety is maybe good for people who are into like craft and nuance, but if you're making points, you're talking about the world, so you should, you know, if you want your work to have like an impact, to punch somebody in the gut, it's like you should want that to land as hard as you can, and
Yeah.
you don't really have time to like dance around with subtlety.
Yeah, some things I think just deserve that kind of gut punch. I think it's
Yeah.
just sometimes it's fine to just go, no, this is just really like 100% how we feel about this, and just kind of going for it. And I do think readers like that sometimes, you know, like being able to just kind of know exactly what you're saying. Because
Right.
you're not being overly complicated with it. You're like, no, this is bad. It's like, this is bad. This is not bad. This is less bad. This is, you know, like that's kind of.
Yeah, I feel like if you have to walk away from a project not knowing if people got what you were trying to say, that's kind of a failure. It's like when people, this is the way, at least my approach is like, when I feel like when people read one of my books, they should have the same feeling as if like a naked person just run by on fire. It's like, no, I could not have missed that, and I got it.
That's exactly the feeling I get when I read one of your books.
Oh, well, thank you, Stuart. It's so gratifying.
Great to draw as well, because you're never in any doubt what anybody's feeling in a panel. Because sometimes you get a script and you're not quite sure where somebody is in their head.
Right.
But I always know where you want it, so it makes it much easier.
Yeah, I mean, one thing in comics too is you never have as much space as you want. You know, you never have enough have enough pages to exploit. So it's a good
every comic's like 2 pages short, you know, where it should be.
Yeah, but it's a good idea not to shy away from the point, because you may not get that. Often but you may not get that seventh issue to really drive it home.
Well, that's the other thing too, I think, is that getting to your point is not a bad thing at all. Like, it's, if you have the time to tell it leisurely and stuff, like that's great too. But sometimes I think it's kind of one of the reasons why I do like limited series to a degree, because there is a focus to them that sometimes things that are more meandering don't have. And I like sort of having that focus. Like for me, it's kind of it helps keep that, sometimes that writer thing of wandering off on tangents and things. It's kind of good to reel that in sometimes, I think.
Steve, how do you feel about it? Do you like the long-term experience of working on an ongoing book, or do you prefer to hop in and out of projects, or is that not a factor in your thinking?
I don't know, working on a 6-issue series is a lot like being on an ongoing book anyway, because you get to know the characters. I prefer to spend time with characters and get to know what makes them tick and figure out their body language and stuff like that. I was really sad to leave the characters in Billionaire Island. There was a character I thought, well, I've drawn him for the last time, and I was like, quite, because I spent so much time getting his eyes just right, and this that's a silly thing, but I think a mini is great because you know where you're going to end, you know where it's all going to go, and you've got a point to, you can pace yourself better. It's more of a marathon than a kind of a, well, I don't know how. Anyway, you can pace yourself better, so you know where you're ending up. Ongoings can be like crazy. They're just they're quite grinding at times, but I think with a mini you can put more effort into crafting it and getting every page pretty much how you want it, whereas on an ongoing you have to keep your eye on getting the 22 pages in every month as the doing well. And Ahoy gave me all the time I needed to do this book, so I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out.
That's great. Yeah, when we have had the advantage, and a lot of this goes to Hart Seeley, our publisher, has given us the tools to work ahead, so we don't have to. We're not scrambling to meet deadlines. We're not missing ship dates. We're not doing all that. We're not doing any of that because you know, Tom and I have been doing this for a little while, and we sort of we're both pretty good at we're both pretty good at planning, so I think that works out. Yeah, Tom, something Mariah said struck me. Like, I know that one of your, in addition to writing these books, you're Ahoy's editor-in-chief, and you've said all along that you think it's a good idea for a new book to kind of really tell you what it's about in the first issue, just sort of like have the status quo set up so that you know, so the reader knows where it's going to a degree, or not where it's going, but what it is.
What the experience is going to be of reading this title. Like the example I always use, and I won't name names, but there was a comic, there was a mini series years ago that teamed up star characters from two completely different franchises, and by the end of the first issue, they still hadn't met. And I thought that was just the dumbest thing I ever saw in my life. You find this team up book and there's no team up in it. And it's not like they gave it to you for free or anything. You're paying for a team up. So, I always, that got me thinking that if a lot of people, if they were doing like a comic book of Gilligan's Island, they would end the first issue with a shipwreck. And I would say, no, you're doing it wrong. Because we want to see Gilligan like foil their attempt to get off the island as soon as possible. Like, they should be there by page 10. And so that's part of my comic book philosophy. But I also, you know, we were talking about bludgeoning people with the point earlier. And I love doing that too, because I think we get so precious sometimes with our ideas that we forget to be entertaining. And that's like the main thing with Ahoy, is I just want to always be entertaining. I'm terrified of boring anybody. And that's why humor is so important to us. They don't all have to be comedies, but on some level, I'd like them all to be funny.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've got, you know, we've got some new books coming up from Ahoy, and I don't want to I don't think we can really banner them here because we're going to announce them in a different forum. But I'm kind of pleased with the way the line is evolving now, where we are bringing back Second Coming, Wrong Earth. So we've got some of the things we did that people responded well to early on coming back in. At the same time, we are still starting up new projects, and I think it's going to be a good year.
You look like the world's craziest religious painting right now. You've got
it's making me feel like Stan, you know, like I want to go, whoa, true believer. Oh yeah, I'm haloed, aren't I?
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
get
it's
right
very
in
much-
there, right in the middle there. Yeah.
Jesus' halo should be the Ahoy bullet in the second series.
It sounds like a cover idea for Second Coming.
Kind of does, yeah.
Ah,
So ecclesiastical and like very fancy.
Mm-hmm.
God, I can't remember how to turn this off now. Okay, there we go. Now I'm back at home.
And you have your backpack, which I remember from convention. So it's almost like being there.
It is, and you know what's weird is I normally, under normal circumstances, I use that backpack every day, and I go out and I write in coffee shops and things, and I don't think I've picked it up for 3 months at this point.
Yep.
It's just been sitting there.
You missed your backpack, Stuart.
I miss San Diego.
I got all
That's
those
always,
books.
I've been going for a long time.
I got all these things I was planning to take to cons this year and sell, and they just sit there in my garage mocking me now.
Like just books, you mean?
Yeah. I'm actually a Bible salesman now. Apparently, I have, my God is disappointing you, and my Second Comings. I take them to conventions and sell them. Not how I saw my life turning out, but here we are.
Yeah, we're really gonna have to see how all that stuff shakes down, because like I can imagine going to small conventions again fairly soon.
Yeah.
Big ones are rough. That's gonna be hard.
Yeah, I don't know how they're planning on doing.
Well, all the
That, until
travel
there's a
involved and
vaccine.
everything else. Yeah, I don't know. I know there's some starting up. I think there's one in Florida next
Would
month.
be Florida, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it is Florida.
Yeah, I was a little
Yeah.
bit like,
Yeah, not
"Ew."
yet.
They need to do it like a bank where everyone's sitting behind a glass sheet and maybe like a little rubber glove so you can put your
Boy,
hand
that'll
in the
make
rubber
the whole
glove and
experience
shake
that much
hands with
more
people as they
fun.
walk by.
Yeah.
I keep trying to picture like socially distant conventions, and I'm like, I don't know how this is gonna work.
Yeah.
I think casual hazmat wear.
Yeah.
Ah,
Everyone's cosplaying as like a member of AIM from
Well, people have really taken to like really art. I've seen some amazing masks that people have made, like vintage fabrics and designed with like, flower, like beautiful stuff. So maybe there'll be some kind of
Yeah.
cosplay. I mean, honestly, it seems like the way it's going to have to go for at least a while.
If you were in like a full-on Darth Vader costume, would you be protected from COVID-19? I guess it depends on whether the respirator was real.
Working.
Yeah.
how
Okay,
authentic is that? Does Darth Vader like himself? Does he have equipment in there? I guess he must.
I wonder, how much of that is regalia, his costume, is to protect him from because he's got a compromised immune system from being,
Yes.
burned half to death. So now he's got to filter all the air, and he can probably make it smell like anything he wants to as it comes in too. So it'd be he could set it to fresh baked cinnamon rolls, or
I love the idea of Vader doing that, of having that
tacos.
whole thing, but he's having it scented with really soothing tea or something.
like yaking candle, votives coming in to the
Very
mask.
nice.
You'd have it scented with murder.
Yeah. Oh, jasmine. I'm feeling very jasmine today. I'm gonna have a jasmine scent inside the mask.
Lilac Vader.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
You haven't lived.
Well, I think we're probably coming close to the end of our time. I did want to sort of run down the table, such as it is. There is no table, but have everybody plug anything they're working on that they'd like to talk about, or that they have coming out soon. Anything you're excited about just right now. Mark, what are you up
Well,
to?
the thing I'm most excited about right now is Billionaire Island, because it's issue 2 is coming out, and I feel like a lot of ways there's such a big gap between issue 1 and 2. I don't want people to forget about it. So yeah, I'm really excited for Billionaire Island, and then I'm also doing some of the digital first stuff for DC. So if people who are not feeling safe going into a comic book store or a retail operation yet, they can download my Batman Gotham Knights and Swamp Thing New Roots series, which are available digitally.
Yeah, I'm living Swamp Thing. That's really fun.
Oh, thanks.
That's Tom, what about you? What are you working on now?
Who, me? Penultimate.
Ultiman.
Wrong Earth. I'm working on the Wrong Earth, volume 2. I can't wait for that to get going. And yeah, I just work for Ahoy, so I can't plug a DC comic.
What about you, Mariah? What's going on?
I just finished up an anthology called Insider Art that we did for, well, we put it together in 3 months, and it's 250 plus pages with 100 plus contributors, and all proceeds go to help female and non-binary retailers of comics during this whole pandemic. And so the more people can spread the word about that, it's up digitally up on Gumroad. And we're also going to do fabric, and there are auctions that have been ongoing with Jen King. But there will be more of these little cat illustrations and things that we had done that'll be on different parts of it. So that was sort of the main thing. Yeah, I don't really have any upcoming comics work besides editing stuff that I've been doing. I've been working with First Second, and there's a couple really great graphic novels coming out that I was lucky enough to be a part of. And I owe my agent prose, so that's mostly what I'm doing right now.
I think I know that feeling. Steve, what are you up to? Can you talk about what you're doing now, or are you?
I don't think I can. I'm doing some pages at DC, but I don't think it's been announced or anything. So I'm plugging Billionaire Island because we all work on it, and I think it turned out really well.
Okay, good.
Billionaire Island.
Billionaire Island. For my part, I've got an 8-page story in DC's Cybernetic Summer Special where it's called Catfish Crisis, and the amazing Cully Hamner and I make fun of 35 years of mega crossover events in just 8 pages. So
Awesome.
I think people should pick that up. And yeah, like Mariah, I've got a bunch of prose stuff kind of hopping on the side that that needs attention. So cool. Well, thank you guys for coming. This was, you know, bloody strange, I guess, but good. I think it's
so fun though.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thanks.
See.
Maybe next year we'll be out sunny California again. I don't know. Who knows? But thank you. I guess that's it.
Thanks.
Right, bye.
And cut.